What up, what up? This is Finance, Fitness, and Folk channel. We discuss finance, a little bit of fitness, talk about some folk. So in today's episode, I'm going to discuss why you should invest your money, not blow it. So admin notes, thanks again to all the subscribe to the channel. I endeavor to keep pushing these videos, give you leverage to better yourselves. So let's get into it. So why do I say you should invest your money and not blow it? Well, I'm just going to give a really quick example as to what one person did with their money instead of blowing it away. And then I'm gonna hop out this video, right? It's gonna be a real short one, right? So, if anybody knows anything about hip hop and rap, I'm pretty sure you heard about Cam'ron before and Mase. I'm 45 years old, so if you're 45 or older, I'm pretty sure you've heard of these guys before, right? So, these guys got together and created a podcast called It Is What It Is. It's been out, I want to say, maybe about a year now. I'm not sure they reached a year yet. But I saw a clip about them a couple of days ago. A guy had made a clip of Cam'ron explaining how It Is What It Is came about, how he created it, why he created it, and so forth, right? So, first of all, the clip starts off with him lighting a blunt inside the studio of his podcast. Now, I'm not condoning smoking weed or anything like that, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I have no issue with it myself, but I don't condone it either. You know what I'm saying? It's a personal choice, right? But I mentioned that, and I mentioned that because I'm going to say something about that at the end of this video, right? So, like I said, he sparks a blunt up before he starts talking, and then he's explaining to Stack Baby, which is the lady that sits in between them, that gives the stats on certain things when they're going through the podcast. Then Mase is in there as well. And he says that at some point a while back, he came up on $250,000. I'm not exactly sure, how maybe he had money like, saved up, or he did a show or something or whatever, right? So he had $250,000 stacked away, and he said he was going to buy a car. And he thought about it. He was like, I already got a whole bunch of cars. I don't need another car. Things of that nature. So a segue to that is that the guy that created this clip for Cam'ron, he said that Cam'ron had went on to a Gully of the Kid, and I forget the other guy that he does, the Gully of the Kid. I forget the other guy's name that he does a podcast with, but he was on that podcast a little bit before this happened, right? So it leads me to believe that when he was on that podcast, it gave Cam'ron an idea of, why don't I start my own podcast, right? So So instead of spending the $250,000 on a vehicle, he decided to start a podcast. Now he contacts his boy Mase. Now mind you, him and Mase had some ongoing beef. Not exactly sure what the beef was about, but they had not talked to each other in like over a decade, if not longer than that, right? And he said, "Hey, I'm about to do this podcast. I want to I'm just letting you know what's going on." And then Mase is like, now I'm paraphrasing that, right? So Mase is like, I want to get in. And Mase, Cam'ron tells Mase, well, I put up $250,000. And he said, well, that's pocket change. I have $250 as well, $250,000. So the podcast goes on and says, that he was happy that he established his friendship again with Mase, but he also says that that he hasn't even touched the $250,000 that Mase is going to give him for the podcast. He just used his own $250,000 to start the podcast. They had no endorsements. They had no endorsements. They had no no endorsements. They had no sponsors. No sponsors. Nobody on the outside helped them fund this thing. They literally funded this thing out of Cam'ron's own pocket, the money that he had, right? Now, there's something to say when it comes to somebody funding their own business out of their own pocket, because that's really hard, you know what I'm saying? Because for the most part, you can, ask for loans from banks, and if you have a non-profit, you can get some investors to put some money towards your dream. And you'll get there faster than you trying to use your own money if you don't have thousands of dollars in the bank saved up for you to start your own business, right? But Cam'ron had that money, so he was there to put his money up and invest it. Now, pushing forward into the podcast, he actually says that not a podcast, but the reel, he says that he actually, the 250,000 he put up actually started, right now is worth $3 million. So out of the 250,000 that he invested in this podcast, he's sitting on $3 million that is worth right now, right? And like I said, once again, he hasn't even touched the money that Mace is going to give him towards the podcast. He might never touch it, right? So that's all to say is that, you know, starting a business is like one of the most free things you can do in life, right? And like I said, I mentioned him smoking the weed thing because he sparked that blunt in his studio at his own podcast, right? So once again, he has no sponsors, no endorsements, right? So this is all him. Nobody's telling him he can't do something. So he sparked that blunt up because it was his studio. He could do whatever he wanted to do in his own studio, right? He's not paying rent to anybody. He really created this thing he pulled out of the mud. He created this thing on his own with the help of Mace and some other folks or whatever. But, you know, he started this thing from the ground up and he invested his money instead of blowing it away on a vehicle that he didn't need, right? So that's all to say that, you know, if you have money to put away and you're thinking about using this money to buy something extravagant, like to make you feel good, you might want to think twice and take that money and invest it in something that's going to give you a return. And these guys are hilarious on this podcast. I suggest you watch it if you haven't watched it yet. It's a sports podcast. So basically, they created their own ESPN, right? But I mean, it's hilarious, and I love watching it. And I love watching those guys getting back together because, like I said, I'm a hip hop head, and I remember when those guys first came out, they was rapping together, right? So it's really good to see these guys back together, like having fun and making money. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the American dreams, having fun while you're making money, right? That's what they're doing right now. So don't blow your money, invest your money. Invest your money in assets going to bring you a return, all right? Like, comment, subscribe. I endeavor to keep putting these videos out. Give you leverage to better yourselves. Find it, fitness, and folk. Triple F, I'm gone.